Hi, I'm Jodelle Tyken. I've worked in Fargo schools for 20 years, so many of you have known me as the technology lady before I was married and had these three lovely children. They would not be happy with me, but I abandoned my plan for a live video feed when my deadline to create this video required me to finish it in my jammies. Trust me, you would much rather look at a picture of my kids. In my role in instructional technology, I've been focused on bringing 21st century skills into all curriculum. This year, Dr. Gross and Dr. Schatz asked me to assume a broader role working with principals, curriculum facilitators, and all of you in the implementation of all standards across the system. Dr. Schatz has asked the Teaching and Learning Department to bring all the curriculum initiatives into focus, to get everyone on the same page about the long-term goals for teaching and learning. I thought it might be helpful to take this opportunity to reflect on where we have been and share the big picture of where we're headed. I know you're preparing for a steady stream of students tomorrow, but I'd like you to try to pause for the next 30 minutes to personally reflect on what you believe and compare your beliefs with the vision for teaching and learning in our district. I'll share some big picture ideas, tell you about some of the adjustments we've made at the district office to support teachers, and gather your ideas and questions as we look for solutions to the challenges ahead. Last year, Dr. Schatz asked our district team to reflect on what excellence means for the Teaching and Learning Department and to create short and long-range goals that very intentionally map out our plan for achieving it. In the business world, this is relatively easy to do with profit margins and satisfaction surveys, numbers that are easy to see and hard to argue with. When the goal is learning for all, it's a little more difficult to identify the measures that paint the whole picture. Our vision for excellence is student growth to standards, meaning all students achieve at least 1 year's growth in a year's time. This is pretty hard to argue with, until you acknowledge the harsh reality that schools have a very small amount of control over the variables that impact student learning. Research indicates that more than 80% of student learning is attributable to differences in what students bring to school. Their abilities and attitudes and family and community background, things we do not have control over in our schools. This is why we need to be particularly diligent about focusing our efforts on what we know improves student learning and is within our control. The notion that every student will achieve proficiency of all standards in the same way at the same time is simply ridiculous. We cannot control the level of knowledge and skill students come to us with. We can only control what we do to develop it when they're in our classrooms. No Child Left Behind is a plan to measure adequate yearly progress as an aggregate number. All students, regardless of where they begin, are expected to reach the same bar by the end of the year. In Fargo schools, we would like to measure and report annual growth, with the goal of students achieving expected gains within a given time frame. We want our story of excellence to reflect our efforts in a way the state test cannot measure. So, our teaching and learning team synthesized our district goals into the following formula for excellence. Student growth to standards is a function of professional learning communities, standards-based instruction, multi-tiered systems of supports, formerly RTI, and school climate. This equation represents the long-range plan for teaching and learning. Of all the variables that influence learning, these are the ones within our control that have the greatest impact on student growth to standards. Our goal in teaching and learning is to identify our current practice in each of these areas and to carefully focus all our efforts to improve these variables in our system. Yesterday, you heard Dr. Schatz talk about his plan to update our strategic plan to reflect this growth model. So the indicators of excellence we are measuring and reporting to our community reflect our shared beliefs about what students need to be successful in college and careers. So let's start with the end in mind. I'd like to ask the facilitators to pause the video for a few minutes to allow you to have a discussion about what skills do our graduates need to be successful in college and careers. Please take a few minutes to just brainstorm this question in your small group and share some of your ideas out to the large group. So take a look at the 21st century skills on this poster. Think about the list you brainstormed. How many of the items on your brainstorming list are 21st century skills? Virtually any stakeholder group we talk to, teachers, principals, parents, employers, agree that students need 21st century skills. But how can we get beyond wishing for this to actually achieving it? Where do these skills fit into our courses? We know 21st century skills are important, but how will we find time to teach these skills in addition to our content standards? The 21st century rubrics are a piece of this puzzle. Last year, West Fargo, and Moorhead schools modeled the 4 C's when district teams collaborated to create a common definition for 21st century skills by developing the Metro 21C rubrics. The poster represents the performance areas defined within each of the 4 C's, and the rubrics include student-friendly language. The goal with these rubrics is to create a common language, a common definition for skills that can be difficult to measure. These can be used to have students self-reflect or as part of classroom activities where students are applying 21st century skills. My goals in the next 15 to 20 minutes are for you to be aware of the vision for teaching and learning and the focus on student growth to standards, to make connections with our efforts to incorporate 21st century skill standards in the work of the Glass Paper Project, and to learn about how the teaching and learning team has been restructured to provide support for teachers and principals as we engage in this work together. I would also like to take the opportunity to model an application of the 21st century rubrics. There should be a communication rubric for each of you on the table. This is part of the 612 communication rubric for 21st century skills. In an effort to try to familiarize you with the language in the 21st century skills rubrics, I would like you to take a moment to reflect on these 2 performance areas: engaging in conversations and discussions and effective listening. Our first step in ensuring students have the skills they need to be successful in college and careers is for the adults in our schools to know what is meant by 21st century skills and to model these behaviors for our students. This is where the Glass Paper Project comes in. Most of you know about the part of this project that involves assigning personal learning devices to students in grades 6 through 12. This year, all students in grades 9 through 12 will have a tablet, and by fall 2015, all students in our middle schools will have a personal device as well. This will complete the deployment phase of the project, but the more labor-intensive work begins in the implementation phase, once students have the devices. In the implementation phase, teachers will be asked to identify the content in 21st century skills standards taught and assessed in their courses, and to build a curriculum framework that helps them monitor individual student growth toward these standards. Biology, Western Civ, and English 2 teachers began the implementation phase 2 years ago when they met to learn more about the 21st century skills and share ideas about how to use the rubrics in their courses. Some junior-senior courses began this work last year. This is not new. Teachers routinely teach 21st century skills. The goal in the implementation phase is to be more intentional and systemic about this by using the language of the 21st century rubrics. We want students to know what it means to be collaborative, because it means the same thing in Mr. Pauly's classroom as it does in Mr. Kloster's. Eventually, all courses will have time to work together to clarify content in 21st century skill standards in their course, and to collaborate and construct activities and assessments to teach and monitor progress toward achievement of these standards. Part of our challenge in this shift to more intentionally emphasize 21st century skills in our courses is that teachers have traditionally had limited access to resources to teach course content. Equitable access to technology opens the door to using unlimited resources to meet the varied learning needs of students. Through PLCs and course-alike professional development, we can share strategies for ways to engage students in our content and teach and assess 21st century skills. The implementation phase of the Glass Paper Project is about providing time for teachers to talk about the curriculum frame for each course. Using a construction analogy, we start with a solid foundation, clearly articulating the essential content standards and 21st century skills in the course. No matter what your blueprint looks like, a home has some common rooms, bathrooms, kitchens, bedrooms. This is analogous to what common units and pacing guides are to a course. And in order to ensure your home doesn't have a leaky roof or electrical malfunction, the structure must be built to code. This is where our common assessments come in. Once our house is framed in, teachers are free to apply their own style to each room. Standards-based instruction is not about ensuring all teachers teach the same content at the same time, nor is it a free pass to teach whatever you want whenever you want to. Standards-based instruction is about shifting our focus away from covering the content to deeper learning and application of standards so the learning sticks. We need to work together across our system to build the framework to ensure the same high level of standards are taught and assessed in all sections of the same course, remaining mindful of the fact that students migrate between our schools. Most of you have heard the political debates about the Common Core standards and the impact of a more rigorous state assessment. I'd be lying if I said this test didn't matter. However, we have to extract what is useful about the Common Core standards and the state test and not get caught up in the politics of these efforts. We will always have standards, and we will always be accountable for the work that we do in schools. This is fair. Standards help us define what we believe is important for all students to know and be able to do, and we should be accountable for ensuring students learn. That said, it will fall to us to tell the story of student growth. Even though the state assessment seems a little daunting right now, we need to remember that it's just one assessment. It's not possible to summarize a student's learning in a single test, much less a single number. As educators, we need to understand what the number reported in the paper reflects about our efforts and what it doesn't. If you apply your knowledge of algebraic equations, you will remember that changing one variable impacts the whole equation. It is not possible or desirable to change all the variables at once, but by improving the variables we can control, we'll improve learning by any measure. The only assessment worth giving is the one teachers and students use to improve performance. Our work ahead is to ensure we have assessments in place that help teachers and students monitor their growth toward standards in a way that helps us in our classrooms and tells our story of excellence to our parents and our community. For as long as I can remember, I have listened to teachers say, there are too many initiatives. I don't even know what I'm supposed to teach anymore. Just tell me what to teach and I'll teach it. And if students only came to me knowing whatever. Teaching is one of the most difficult and thankless professions. Educators give their best day after day, yet often find themselves defending their profession. A friend once asked me, how do you know all your work makes a difference? At first, I was frustrated with this question, but it helped me understand the importance of measuring progress. I used to think assessment was about proving to someone else that my efforts were worthwhile. This question made me realize that assessment was necessary to prove to myself that my efforts were effective. We all work hard. I want to know that my time is worth the effort, and if it's not, I want to make changes that produce better results. When 3 teaching and learning directors announced their retirement last year, Dr. Gross, Dr. Agri, and Dr. Schatz did what any visionary leaders would do. They paused to take a step back and look at the organization of the system to determine if the current structure was the most effective one as we move forward. In this reflection, they discussed the need for a structure that is designed to focus and align our K-12 curriculum and PD efforts. They recognized that content areas with a teacher who had time in their contract to share resources, information, and serve as the communication conduit between classroom teachers and the district office were better positioned to make the shifts to standards-based instruction and the implementation of 21st century skills. It's worthwhile to note that this restructure had a net zero impact on the budget. The goal was to have more people in schools and classrooms supporting teachers by streamlining the district administrators' roles. The long-term plan is for most curriculum areas to have at least a part-time facilitator or teacher leader to ensure teachers have a go-to person who is knowledgeable about their content area and available for hands-on classroom level support. This team represents the district office administrators who work with school administrators and curriculum teacher leaders to support the teaching and learning goals leading to student growth to standards. This team works with our curriculum facilitators to ensure professional development time is allocated and resource budgets are adequate to meet the needs of each content area. There is never enough time and money, but our job is to assimilate and prioritize the teaching and learning needs across the system. The elementary curriculum facilitators work with school-level strategists and building principals to support K-5 classroom teachers. This team has been in place for a number of years and provide a good model and support for our secondary facilitators as we work together to vertically align our curriculum K-12. Some of the 6-12 curriculum facilitator positions have been in place, but these positions have rotated over the years to lead the implementation of new textbook adoptions as part of the curriculum adoption cycle. With a shift to focus on standards, the secondary model is now similar to the elementary model. Facilitators supporting teachers through communication of a variety of resources and strategies for all learners. The title facilitator was very carefully selected to convey the message that these teachers facilitate the implementation of standards-based instruction. Similar to students in a classroom, teachers in our district bring varied knowledge and skills about standards and 21st century skills. The facilitator is in a unique role in which he or she has the opportunity to learn from many teachers and share those ideas across the system. These facilitators want to be present in your classrooms, answering your questions and supporting all teachers to improve student growth to standards. Math teachers are managing some significant shifts with the Common Core standards. In visiting with math teachers and building principals, we felt we would benefit from the broader range of experience an outside consultant could provide. 3 teachers from each middle and high school have offered to be part of the math leadership team who will work with teachers in their schools to formulate goals and PD support plans for secondary math teachers. We plan to have this shared leadership model in math for the next 2 years, and the team will reevaluate the need for a single 6-12 math facilitator at that time. Similar to math, we decided to create a shared leadership model for high school language arts as well. This year, this team will work with the ELA teachers in their schools to accomplish short-term goals with the Common Core writing rubrics. They will also collaborate with their peers to make a recommendation about long-term goals and determine the best way to support teachers in meeting those goals. Some of our program areas span the elementary and secondary grades, requiring a K-12 focus. These facilitators and coordinators work with both the K-5 and 6-12 facilitators to align their work with the entire teaching and learning team. Some of our students require extensions or interventions that are beyond the scope of the core classroom instruction. The Student Support Services team assists with the multi-tiered system of supports process, MTSS, formerly RTI, to assist teachers with determining needs for these students. The role of the facilitators will be to work with teachers to ensure our curriculum foundation and frame are solid, and to assist teachers in monitoring student growth toward the standards. District-level facilitators were hired to support teachers in their efforts to improve student growth. This year, you can expect facilitators to visit your classrooms, PLC meetings, department meetings, to learn about what is working well and what you think would help you improve student growth in your classroom. The district facilitators will work hand in hand with school-level support staff. Our librarians and IT coaches are our 21st century evangelists. If you're interested in learning more about how to access and use the 21st century skills rubrics, please visit your library team. They are willing and able to help you implement 21st century skills in your classroom. In preparation for fall 2015 implementation in the middle schools, one middle school IT coach has been hired to work with all 3 schools this year, and the plan is to hire one for each middle school next year. Teachers who have experienced this support model in the high school will attest to the fact that this school-based support is essential for teachers who are learning to incorporate technology-based resources and 21st century skills. The shift to a growth model for assessment makes sense. It's a more accurate reflection of our efforts. And we need to remember to keep the 21st century skills at the forefront of our work. These skills are not something being imposed on us. We want students in our classrooms to have 21st century skills. We want adults in our lives to have 21st century skills. And those of us who have children in our homes want our kids to have 21st century skills. We know these are the skills students need to be successful in college and careers. Our work together is to figure out how to make it a reality in our classrooms. Take a few minutes at your table to talk about this future scenario. The year is 2020, and your students are all making the learning gains you would like to see. Everyone's on the same page about academic goals, and we work together to achieve them. What did we do? What are we currently doing that we should continue? What barriers do you anticipate will get in our way, and how can we avoid or repair them? The teaching and learning team needs your ideas. If this were easy work, it would already be done. There are no simple solutions, and we need everyone to offer their ideas about what's working, what could work better, and how to go about accomplishing it. We'd like to hear your ideas, now and in the future, about what we can do at a district level to support your efforts to improve student growth to standards. Please consider entering some of the ideas generated in your discussions today in the suggestion box. The link to the suggestion box will be on the front page of the portal this week and will be in the teaching and learning area beyond that. We welcome your creative ideas to achieve our collective vision. How did you do? Did you engage in discussions? Listen effectively? Our first step toward 21st century students is 21st century adults. Thank you for reflecting on these performance areas of the communication rubric. I hope it was helpful to hear a little about the big picture. One thing I've learned in my 20 years in Fargo schools is to assume positive intentions. I have never worked with someone in our district who set out to do the wrong thing. Even though you may feel dismissed by an administrator who didn't say yes to your request, or attended a PD session you were frustrated with, the people behind the action are good people. Even though we are all lamenting the end of summer, I'm excited you're all back in the schools. I'm looking forward to working with all of you and our curriculum facilitators in this new role as we work together to achieve our shared vision.